Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon by Rabbi Adam Kligfeld.
It's hard even when we're truncating things to really get everything in 2 hours, but we're committed to ending this on time. But we'd also be remiss if we didn't spend a few minutes focusing one more time on you, Josh, and what you've done today and who you are. When your parents speak about you as original and unique and independent in the most praiseworthy of ways, it's really exceptionally true. And obviously they know it about 1 billion times more than I know it. But I know it. I sense it from you from the first time you and I began to interact. All the ways that you've handled yourself through this time. I remember certain things from our first meeting about the bar mitzvah a year ago in my office that just stuck out. I remember just if you would, tell me a few things about yourself that I might not know otherwise. And you said to yourself that I'm an independent thinker and I'm bipartisan. I don't think I ever heard a bar mitzvah student identify himself as bipartisan, which says something so subtly wonderful about how keyed in you are to some things that are very adult, but are obscured even to many adults. You said you like researching your own sources and not just relying on anything that you read. And if you watch the TV and listen to the news, you would think that the world is only a terrible place. And that's true. And already at your age, you have expressed interest in going deeper than the headlines and being able to think for yourself. It's clear that you're a person who thinks a lot about what is right and what is wrong. And both your parents have told me that they not only love watching you learn, but they learn from you. Which means that you're having influence not only on your peers, but also on your elders, as it were, who are getting a sense of how differently to think about life because of your influence. Your Dvar Torah was as witty as it was interesting and filled with ideas about how to think about the Parsha. You both connected to what is strange about some of these rules that those wandering Israelites had to be given as they were becoming a society, and also brought out from it something quite beautiful. In many ways, you're exceptional in subtle ways that are not always obvious. And with that in mind, I want to share one tiny piece of Torah that I found on one of the verses that we read this morning. Actually happened to come in one of the aliyot that I read, not you, but it's part of your parsha. One of the several times that Torah speaks about tzitzit comes in this week's parsha. The verse was Gedilim taselach, make little fringes on your garment, al arba kanfot ksucha, on the four corners of your garment. And there was a Hasidic rabbi named Rabbi Yechezkel of Kuzmir. He lived in the 18th and 19th century. He was the first Rabbi of the dynasty that became the Mudjitzer Hasidic dynasty. They still exist, mostly in Jerusalem. And he said, it's something interesting. When you put on a talis, you bless God, Asher Kedishanu Mitzvotav B'Tzivanu, who commanded us, Lehit Atef, to wrap ourselves up, Batzitzit, in the fringes. But when we're wrapped in this, right? In fact, when I say the bracha, I actually put it over my head. I wrap myself. I'm not really wrapped in the fringes. I'm wrapped in the garment. He says, why isn't the blessing lehitatef, to wrap yourself, batalit, in the garment? It's not like we're taking the fringes and wrapping them around us. He says he's teaching something that's very important about ethics and humility. Since the tzitzit hang low on the garment, they're the one that's the lowest part of the garment because they're hanging off the four corners, and they often drag on the ground. The bracha is a way of telling us that the things that are sometimes considered to be the least interesting, lowest on the garment, not getting the spotlight, that's what we need to raise up, and that's what we need to wrap ourselves in. Josh, you represent that. You find a way of raising up aspects of thinking, even aspects of Torah reading that you could very easily overlook as the bottom dwellers. You made every pronunciation correct. As we discussed this week, your kamatz katans, you pronounce as aw and not ah. Very few people would think about that. You put every stress on the right syllable. Those are the tzitzit, the things that kind of hang low, and you raise them up and you wrap yourselves in it. And when someone like me and people like us see someone like you working so hard to elevate the tzitzit of life, the things that can be discarded or disregarded because they're not at the top of something, we learn a lot about how we're supposed to be living our religious and our spiritual lives. So I want to commend you for maintaining your humor and bringing us your wisdom on this very different way of becoming a bar mitzvah. And although these masks kind of block our facial expressions, I want you to know that we are smiling broadly behind them. And we're proud of you. And we're proud that we share a community with you. And we're proud that we're going to live in a society where someone like you is going to grow up and lead and contribute. And so I hope you feel very proud of yourself as you think about what you've accomplished today and the influence you've had on all of us. And I wish you a mazel tov.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.